Good evening and welcome to Speak Out Seattle's District 5 Candidate Forum. My name is Jen Oxley and I'm a D5 resident and a volunteer with Speak Out Seattle. Speak Out Seattle is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, grassroots group of volunteers focused on local issues surrounding public safety, homelessness, and drug addiction and mental illness. We believe our city can and should do better to serve those living in crisis right now, and we advocate for compassionate, evidence-based solutions to the many problems we face as a city. One way we are doing that is by presenting these candidate forums in each district of the city to bring you, the voter, into the same room as the candidates who wish to represent you at City Hall. What are your most pressing issues here in D5?
And we'll get to that in a second. As for the questions, we have an introductory question, 2 of them from Speak Out Seattle, that is important to this group and that they wanted me to ask. But the rest of the questions will come from you guys. And I've looked through the questions and I'm going to try to prioritize the ones that I see a lot, so that way most of you will get the answers that you are looking for. And I will also pepper in some of my questions as well. As a journalist, I can't help myself. So again, in the interest of time, we're just going to get started here. So let's go ahead and just meet our candidates tonight. We have Ann Davison-Sattler, John Lombard, and David Ishii. Hello. Easiest question of the night. Please introduce yourself and tell us why you are running for District 5. And Ann, if you want to take first, or David, whoever wants to take the turn.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you all for coming and spending your valuable time with us tonight. That's one of our most precious commodities that we don't get back. My name is Ann, and I have lived here for 23 years. I came to Seattle to build my future here. I came as a single woman, and I came here to work for the Seattle Supersonics. I have lived in 5 different neighborhoods across Seattle. I've been a single, carless woman. I'm now a married mom of young elementary kids. And I've also lived along the Thai-Cambodian border and worked in a refugee camp. And the things that I see here currently on our streets of Seattle are nothing like what I saw in the refugee camp. Things here are far, far worse. So to me, that is a very big issue. And it's something that really has driven me to look at running here tonight. My young kids are 8 and 10, and for their short lifetimes, they have been asking me questions about complicated issues. And we have a defining factor. It is an unresponsive council.
Okay, John?
Okay, everybody can hear me as well? Good. So good evening, I'm John Lombard. I want to thank Speak Out Seattle for organizing this first candidate forum in District 5, and thank my challengers, our other challengers, Ann and Dave tonight for joining me. And note the absence of the incumbent, Deborah Juarez. If her absence was unusual, it would be easily excused, but it's not. I'm running for City Council to bring engaged, responsive leadership to District 5. I've been engaged with District 5 for 17 years as a community leader. I've demonstrated that I listen and that I lead collaboratively. If elected, I promise to work with you to shape the future of District 5. District 5 is a part of the city that has long been neglected. I'm running to make sure that District 5 residents are heard by their council member and by the city.
Hello, my name is David Ishii. I'm running for District 5. I see a lot here in North Seattle, District 5. I was homeless one time in 2016, and I understand the homeless situation. And I like to correct it. See, I like to bring on, for our veterans, I like to bring on United States USS Midway aircraft carriers for our veterans for shelter, long-term care, whether it be counseling, whatever their needs will be. It'd be permanent shelter, our battleships, in our underground tour, Doc Bander's underground tour. We would put capsule hotels on there for the rest of the homeless. And then if we need more underground, we would call ElonMuskWar.com, and we would build tunnels and put capsule hotels down there for our homeless, take care of our homeless. They're bickering back and forth, always trying to figure out what to do about the homeless situation. It's very easy to solve and solution.
Okay, well, thank you so much for those introductions. So I want to go into the first question that SOS has. It says, Mayor Durkin, Councilmember Deborah Juarez, Seattle Police Leadership had what was called a public safety town hall meeting here in District 5 this past Monday. This was shortly after the mayor and SPD announced emphasis patrols in certain Seattle neighborhoods, but District 5 was not included in that. So do you think District 5 neighborhoods should have been included in this new plan, in the emphasis patrols?
Yeah, I certainly think that District 5 neighborhoods should be included in the police department's emphasis patrols. I don't really want to speak to this specific choice of those 7. I do know that the police department, the North Precinct, has placed an emphasis on Aurora already, and on some of the surrounding side streets that have been affected by the disorder and crime on Aurora. So, you know, I don't know that well, I guess, would it need to be more than it was, or that it has been? We need to have targeted policing that is based on where crime is concentrated, and if that adds to the places that the city has already identified along Aurora, then we should add to that list in D5.
It's called the RICO Act, RICO. We take back our streets on Aurora Avenue. It didn't Tuckwillow. Our police department in Tuckwillow should be commended. They took back the streets, they condemned the buildings, the hotels and motels, and it's called RICO Act. You should take a drive on Pac Highway. You'll see what has been done up there. It's beautiful. It's being rebuilt, and nothing's being done on Aurora. What the heck is going on Aurora? It's called the RICO Act. We take it back. We condemn some of those buildings and rebuild. It's called RICO Act. It's the truth.
I think absolutely District 5 should be in that. And actually, frankly, I think every neighborhood should be in that. I think that should be going for longer than 1 month. I think our city is telling us very loudly that we all want that type of response to the needs that we're experiencing. We had our Lake City Way shooting, and it only was because an officer was nearby that was stopped. And so I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm really shocked and upset that we are not included in that. And if you have looked at our council member's comments on that after that shooting, she described it as it's just part of the messiness of life. And I'm sorry, that's not good enough anymore to think that we need to tolerate that and that there's not another way to handle when people are breaking the law. We can do it with compassion. It doesn't have to be divorced from consequences, though. We have to renew that and make sure that every neighborhood is protected, but I do think that District 5 should have been included in that.
So the second question is, if a severe earthquake occurred tomorrow, our government would declare a state of an emergency and those who were without shelter would be provided temporary housing and supportive services. Why is the 4-year-old state of emergency response to homelessness different from a natural disaster response? And if you want to, David, if you want to answer this question first.
I was up at the mayor's office when it was Mayor McGinn's, and they had earthquake disaster preparedness relief, and I don't know, homeless people are just treated differently. I was homeless. I know what's going on there. It's like we're neglected. See, I just found shelter about a year and a half ago, and I'll pass it on to.
Thank you. That's an excellent question, actually. I've been wondering that myself and asking that to D5 residents as I go door to door. We did declare that state of emergency at the city and county level in 2015. That's why I want there to be an emergency response to homelessness. I feel like it's unacceptable that they have declared that and then left it there, because we should be testing our system for such an earthquake. We should be seeing if we can have the response necessary if we were to have that kind of a disaster. So we should be treating homelessness in that same way, with an urgency. And I don't get any sense of urgency from any of our city leadership, particularly our current council member. There is not an urgent response. There is a way to do it. If we treat it like it's an emergency, that means we, instead of having people publicly camp, we bring them into FEMA-style relief shelters. And then we can do a needs assessment and get people the help that they need, and then the green spaces are open for all of us.
So, I mean, I definitely agree with Ann that the overall solution that we're having here, or that we should have in District 5 and across the city, should involve that sort of mass scale effort, given the scale of the problem. So FEMA-style tents and, you know, large modular housing, concentrated encampments that are managed through the city, you know, are an important and necessary part of the response. You know, the reality is, we call it revisioning Northgate. It's trying to do the same sort of thing there. If I was elected, it would be a very strong personal passion of mine as a community organizer to basically, you know, work with them as a representative of their groups to try to get those local ideas adopted.
David?
Well, just listen to John here. He's got some wonderful ideas, and I'm not joking, you know. See, I'm more new to the North End, so I ran for Seattle City Council in 2013. Those were positions, and they weren't divided into districts. But listen to John here, it's quite impressive. Anyway, I'll pass it on to Ann.
Well, some of you may be familiar with my Facebook campaign page, and so I do ask people their top 3 issues. So you said homelessness, that's one of my top issues, along with housing, right? We do know that we do need to bring in housing. We need to bring in a variety of housing. I want to see some dorm-style housing. I want to see a lot of variety for people of varying ages and varying needs, and not just the normal, what people expect people all want, right? So we have a variety of housing. My second major issue is public safety. And as an attorney, that's a big one for me. We are all experiencing a lot in our city. We talk about it a lot. It's almost daily in the news. It's some part of our city, and particularly in D5. Again, we had the Lake City Way shooting. We had one, you know, just yesterday, another shooting up near Northgate Way. So public safety is a very big issue for me. And within that area, I include public health issues, and I also include law enforcement and prosecution at the city level and also at the King County level, right? Because it's a system that we need to provide social rehabilitation for people, and we also need to provide consequences. We need to know that there is a standard to live within a civilized society, that we all follow these rules so we can live in close proximity together. And that doesn't mean that we have no consequences, right? Because when I think about building the best kids for their future, it's not that I let them have everything they want anytime they want it, right? And my third issue is addiction, prevention, and recovery. We need to have detox on demand for all those who are struggling in addiction.
So, Ann, you touched upon kind of the next question that I was going to ask you. Public safety, obviously a very big topic for most Seattleites right now. So what exactly would your top 3 plan be to address public safety if you were elected? And all three of you guys, obviously.
Would you repeat the top?
What are the top 3 things that you would do right away if elected to address public safety?
The first thing I would do is make sure that we are actively recruiting police officers, and that includes a diversity of language, and it means retention of our current officers. I have a friend who's a police officer, a beat cop, and he's looking at leaving because he's been there for so long and there's no career advancement. And so we're going to lose him because there's no career path for him except for staying on the beat because we're not having enough patrol officers hired. But second to that is we need to know that they need to know they are appreciated for the work they do. They need to know that when they go to work helping us be safe, that those arrests they make will turn into charges. So the second issue is at the city attorney level, that there needs to be a prosecution for the offenses that are committed. No more declining to make the charge. We need to make sure that the city attorney, although the council doesn't have direct authority, they can be vocal about it. We have plenty of attorneys at city leadership, at City Hall, who could be telling us why this is happening. And I feel it's their obligation, ethically as an attorney, I feel obligated to find out and unravel, why are we all experiencing this? We're all just guessing in the dark. There are people that are inside the leadership that could be shining a light on it. Even if they don't have authority, they could be shining a light on it. So that would be my second issue. I would be dealing with city attorney, police first, city attorney second. And then the third is, at the county level, the same issues. We need to make sure that we have those offenses prosecuted and that when people are in jail, there is treatment for what they need, whether that be a drug addiction or for social rehabilitation included.
Well, David complimented me, so I'll also compliment the person to my right. I agree.
Do I have to compliment this
We were wondering how we might get that prop in. So I agree with Ann on all those points. But I will focus just on things that truly do relate to the police department. But I think at the larger level, I would totally agree that those are really the three top big issues. Within the police department, again, the number of officers. The Mayor Murray had said he wanted to add 200 police officers. This was something like 3+ years ago. We actually did successfully add a few over the next couple of years, and then last year we actually had a net decrease of something like 61 officers because of so much problems with retention and the difficulty of actually recruiting people into the Seattle Police Department. That relates to morale, it relates to pay, it relates to what happens to the criminals that they arrest, and then the system spits back out onto the street. So all those issues. One specific thing that I would also say to add to that, though, is we could use more community service officers that cost less, are much more easy to hire, and are actually better suited to a lot of the needs that the police department ends up having to address that aren't really truly criminal. Dealing with the homeless, dealing with the mentally ill, dealing with crime prevention. Last but not least around here, replace the North Precinct headquarters. They absolutely need to be replaced. We really ought to have 2 precincts up here in the north end. It's 40% of the city, twice as big as any other precinct.
See, I used to have a good rapport with Police Chief Kathleen O'Toole. She has now retired or moved on to
Speak up.
So anyway, see, I believe one of the answers is we have to have drones. We have to have drones as a fabric of our society. It's very unpopular for votes, but drones. See, I grew up in the '60s. On a hot August night, we would leave our door unlocked, the screen door open. Those were the days, but times have changed very vastly. Drones is the answer. We have nothing to hide. After all, we voted in marijuana. We have nothing to hide. Drones is the answer, really. And you bring them on slowly, and you'll appreciate it. On a hot August night, Granny, Grandpa, walk around with a little nephew or little grandkids. Those days will come back. Drones is the answer, and to maybe take on FAA or air traffic controllers to mandate these drones. And I really believe it'll be a fabric of society.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Are you in favor, or are you for or against, I should say, safe injection sites? And I believe, John, you want to answer that question first?
So that's a complicated question. I will tell you that as a way to save lives, as a way to connect addicts with treatment, I am for safe injection sites. I think there are very strong public health arguments in favor of it. At the same time, I do believe that worries over the community effects that safe injection sites can have on the character and the safety of the surrounding community are grounded in some reality. Not necessarily grounded in the full reality that some of the critics apply, but grounded seriously enough that if we would move ahead with safe injection sites, we need to be able to make very reliable promises of the surrounding community of how the impacts to them would be minimized and mitigated. Lastly, I'd say, realistically, as much as I truly detest the Trump administration, if the United States Department of Justice is going to oppose the city on this with, all guns firing, I don't know that it's worth the time and the money fighting on that rather than putting those resources in some other direction.
David?
Well, I never gave it much thought, but where I stay at, I'm in Lake City, over there by Fred Meyer's, and it really happens, but I don't know, safe or not, maybe you do need safe injection sites. You find needles anyway, wherever you go, and we're just talking about Trump, whatever. So, yeah, safe injection sites, yeah, and where I'm at, all my surrounding area, it is drugs everywhere, and I detest drugs myself, So, yeah, I just go with safe injection.
I am absolutely against safe injection sites. That is the issue that put me over the top and made me become a candidate. I decided I could not explain that to my kids, that that's the best we can do for someone who's struggling with addiction. We know that about 80% of the people who go to a needle dispensary to get clean needles say they want help stopping. 80%. So how can that be the best that we can do is to just provide them a place to continue their habit? We can provide them with a detox on demand. We can get them to where they can have their dignity back and know that they matter to society again. And we can do that if we commit to that, to the longer road of medicalizing their treatment and then providing social rehabilitation so that their behavior can become back welcomed into the community. Because a lot of the crime we're experiencing is to feed the addiction. So we want to help them, and we're not helping by providing a place to continue the addiction. It's a longer road, it's harder work, but it's the right thing to do because we'll be helping them in the long run to be their future best selves.
This is another audience question. It says, name a current policy of sitting the incumbent, Deborah Juarez, that you would change and why? I believe it is. Could you repeat that? Yes. Name a current policy of sitting the incumbent, Deborah Juarez, that you would change, a policy that she has, implemented that you would change and why.
I think she's done a fine job. She's done really, she's done some of the work that, to me, kind of seems a little boring, but if I were elected, you would have a character in the office, but no character. And you wake up in the morning, you get to settle times. Oops, there he is, David Ishii, what's he up to? And then you come home from work, and Eyewitness News or Q13, excuse me, oops, there he is, and people would take notice of being there. But Deborah Juarez took care of a lot of the hard work that was, needed to be done. I think she's done just fine, just a, fine incumbent.
I'm not sure it's a stated policy, but I would definitely change the unresponsiveness. We have unanswered emails, including me. We have unanswered questions. We have a lack of listening to voters. We have shaming, right, of Sonic fans. I'm not okay with any of that, right? It's really not okay to shame someone when you're the person in power. It's your position to be the most magnanimous and the most humble. And I feel like that is really, whether it's tacit or implied, but that type of a behavior and that type of policy is not okay anymore. And then on a vote person, I would not have voted against the street vacation at Oxnell Avenue, and I would have said yes to the Soda Arena so we could bring the Sonics back. Yeah.
So I was going to also say responsiveness, but since Ann beat me to it once again, the The other thing that I would say that, again, it's not really a written policy per se, but it's
So what is it that you would do moving forward to keep people moving in the city? What would you do better?
I would bring back the,
Oh, excuse me,
It's
Ann goes first. Sorry, David.
I'm happy to let you go. if you'd like to go. I think we need to continue what we are doing. I think some of the things we've moved forward with Sound Transit has been really helpful. I think we need to also have more buses. I hear a lot of D5 residents talk about their buses are packed. They are at their stop and they see the bus passing them by and they know they have to wait for the next one, so it's adding a lot of time to that. We need to see that more capacity there because a lot of people are using that. I also think that we need to make sure they're safer on the buses. I have heard from residents that there's actually open air drug use on the buses, so that's really concerning. And it's an issue that I've heard several times from D5 voters. And I also think that we should do some more public-private partnerships related to transportation. We have a lot of creative businesses here that provide transportation with a lot of different modes, and I think that they could be intertwined into the system that we already have, where there's subsidies for those types of businesses to encourage the usage of them because there are already existing structures and platforms in place that people are accessing already, and they can be built into the system that we have to get people moving. And that'd be what I would do.
So I guess I'll quickly talk about two things. One, the city's transit tax, and two, sidewalks. So, we've had a transit tax in place for a number of years. It's going to expire in a few years and presumably will be proposed for renewal, and like just about every other tax, I'm sure will be proposed for an increase. There's been essentially zero transparency about how that money has been used. It was originally proposed at a time where Metro was expecting to have cutbacks, and the idea was this will help maintain our service. Well, then Metro basically found the money, and now it gives an opportunity for expansion. But you give politicians the opportunity to use that money with no real strings attached, and I think one of the places it's ended up going to is Orca cards for high schoolers, which is a nice idea, but that nobody had any thought about that was how they were going to be spending their tax money. We need better east-west connections with transit in D5. We're going to need much better connections with our sound transit stations in District 5. Let's supplement Metro's capacity on that to make sure those are as strong as possible. Real briefly, everybody here knows sidewalks are a huge issue. 2/3 of the missing sidewalks in the entire city are here in District 5. Let's get serious about equity at a citywide level, and we're not going to put them in everywhere, but let's try to take care of our urban villages and our schools at the least.
well, I would like to have a ride-free zone, jeepneys. When I was in the United States Navy, a veteran of the Vietnam era veteran, there were jeepneys in the Philippines. And I like to bring jeepneys in the ride-free zone in the downtown area. I would stop there. I would, multifold buses, light rails, trains, and I'd even bring in bullet trains, crisscrossing the Northwest. It'd all be funded by a search engine and our syntax. This is a little bit off the subject, but see, we would lose the sugar tax and gain a syntax. We would have our own oil refineries, our own gas stations, government-run gas stations. See, we lost a lot of money from liquor tax, or our state liquor board. So anyway, our transportation funded and advocate, go to Washington, D.C. See, it's not Mr. Smith goes to Washington, D.C. David Ishii goes to advocate for mass transit in the greater Seattle, Washington. And I agree, the east-west here in the north end is pretty poor, it needs to be corrected, more routes going east and west.
Okay. The next question is, you did bring up, John, the sidewalks, and that was my next question, actually, so it worked out perfectly. There are some people in this crowd that want to know, apparently they want more sidewalks, so I'm going to ask you guys, or do you guys support putting more sidewalks in your district? And I believe it's John's turn first.
Well, that's an easy one to answer in a whole lot less than a minute and a half. So, you know, I think we all would say yes. There's been a fair amount of talk about it for decades. There's actually been remarkably little new talk about it since we've had our own council member who was selected specifically from this area, who you would think might then say, look, this is a top priority for my district. And, you know, when you see a citywide map and you see where the missing sidewalks are, you know, I mean, it's like 85th is the cutoff for 5th district, and 85th is where the sidewalks basically stop. So, you know, we need to have a broader plan for sidewalks that do apply within District 5. We need to put it in the city's larger, policy framework of social and racial equity, but that is not difficult. You know, we've got some of the most diverse schools in the entire city up here, Northgate Elementary in particular, Broadview Thompson, Olympic Hills. They don't have good sidewalk connections. You know, I grew up in Magnolia. I went to Queen Anne High School. We had safe routes to school in the 1960s. We're still waiting for them up here.
David?
Yeah, I think part of the North Seattle, it was unincorporated one time when they drew the boundary, so there was no mandate to put sidewalks. That's part of the problem here. And when I take Metro Transit, I see these streets. The city planner, I don't think they did a very good job out here. But I believe that Deborah Wes is doing, her heart's into trying to get these sidewalks, do something about the situation. Because those cars come screaming by you sometimes, and you're right up against the side of the car, and I think Deborah is trying to do something, they come. And she's talked about it, so. Anyway.
We're going to pass the compliment to the left this time. I would say, absolutely. We absolutely need sidewalks. It is just should be a given. We're all out walking, whether it's dogs, right? I'm hobbling on my cast here when we're going doorbelling. My young kids, we have strollers, we have all kinds of things. We have ADA, non-accessible corners. And not only is it a problem with sidewalks, right? Because there's a lot of complaints about residential speeding. Right, when all the work's being done on lots of major thoroughfares like 35th Avenue and other streets, the residential streets without sidewalks become even more hazardous. And then we have lots of four-way intersections where there are no stop signs in addition, right? And so the city takes the stance that it slows people down because there's no stop signs, so you stop and look. But I don't necessarily know if that's really accurate in real life. But when you have no sidewalks in addition to no stop signs and residential speeding, to me as a lawyer, that just equals liability. So I say that there's really no reason that we shouldn't be putting money into the sidewalks instead of damages down the road.
I've had several questions asking about whether or not you guys support an extra police department. So if you want to answer the question.
You mean police precinct?
Excuse me, police precinct.
Yeah, I think
Not like an entire new
police
city department.
But, yeah, I guess David.
Go ahead, David, it's your.
Well, I know Councilwoman Chomasawa thought, that money for a new precinct would go better for the homeless situation, for maybe a new place to house homeless. But see, we do have to have a police department, sometimes they were nice to me in the past, so on and so forth. But see, they're the first line of defense. That badge you see are you see them on a horse here, or bicycles, or even a paddy wagon. But that's the first line of defense. So you see, but I believe that they should have a new headquarters, a precinct. But like I said before, I believe in drones. It's very unpopular, but you will feel very safe with drones. And a new precinct would help, and expand. We need to multi-fold and add on more police officers. I think Deborah West has already brought on 40 new extra officers And I say even more, 80, 120, 200 more officers. We need officers you can believe. We have to have officers. See, I just sit there on the sidewalk, you know, I see over where I am in Lake City at the north end, I see all these dents on the side of the car right in the middle. And I said, wow, man, all these cars with these dents and stuff. I think these kids keep coming running around here, you know, and just kicking it or something. Maybe it's initiation or something, or something or other. But anyway, we need police officers that, you know, we couldn't do enough with them.
Thank you, David.
Yes, I do think we need to have a new precinct in the north, and I do think it needs to be 2. I think we need to have one on the west side of I-5, the place that's been proposed, and I think we need to have one on the east side of I-5. If we were to have a natural disaster, it would be difficult to cross over an I-5, and I think that we need to use the police station as a place where we could have a centering location for people to go to in the time of a natural disaster. I actually am starting to think about that a good location would be maybe an area within Magnuson, even though that's D4. I think there's space. I think it would provide access to the east side of D5 and the east side of I-5, and it also would allow for mobility north and south pretty easily along Sandpoint Way. And it's just an idea, but we need to have one, I think, on the west side and one on the east side, and have it function and be earthquake-proof, and have it function as a place if there was a natural disaster where people could go to for help and recover themselves and locate other family members as well.
So the North Precinct is all of North Seattle. It's everything north of the Ship Canal. So that includes District 5, District 4, and District 6, precisely. Those are exactly the boundaries for each of them. That means, among other things, that this is something that just one of those council members can't solve. They do need to work together. And I will give Councilmember Juarez credit that, you know, she, of the 3 that have been in office with Rob Johnson and Mike O'Brien from 4 and 6, Juarez was the most interested in replacing the North Precinct. She, though, never really raised this issue of you know, dividing it into 2 precincts. She's now kind of accepting it as you know, something that's worth considering. It's been an issue, you know, that we at the community level have wanted to see addressed for a long time. I've talked to citizens from Districts 4 and District 6 who are very interested in this. I think with the newly elected council, you know, we've got a very good shot at it. You know, the originally proposed location for the North Precinct was at 130th and Stone. The city owns that land. It's you know, right in an area of high crime. It's an area that could really use public investment to help stimulate larger community development. So I'd still say go with that. But I agree with Ann that, you know, the second one should probably be located elsewhere. Ballard and the U District are the other 2 major centers of crime in the North Precinct, so those would make the most sense.
Okay. So one question that we have is regarding the Aurora Avenue stretch. A lot of people want to know, or I should say several people want to know, how will you work with businesses in that area to revitalize that area, or is that even a priority for any of you guys up there?
So who's?
And that would be Ann.
Yeah, I've gone and talked with business owners along 99, especially the ones near Licton Springs, the sanctioned encampment, in particular like Seattle Fabrics. Talked with Kelly there, and he estimated that he lost about $10,000 a month in walk-in business because his business was located next to Licton Springs encampment. So they are experiencing a lot of trouble along that area. I also talked to another business owner that's been there for 17 years with his used car lot, and he can't even keep an employee for longer than a few hours because of the cleanup that is required to be done of what the needles and feces and waste that's littered amongst his used cars. So it's a difficult area, but there can be revitalization done. We need to make sure that there are adequate sidewalks, talking about that there, where people can get to that area from the neighborhoods. And we need to have some housing that's available that is a variety of housing. I think that we can incorporate the buildings that are there, and we can use some of them to use it as a way to bring in different types of businesses. We're losing businesses along that corridor because of the crime rate. So once we can get that under control and we make sure that there's no public camping, we have people in designated locations from the FEMA relief tents where there's needs assessment done, right? Then we're opening it up that area for more walkability and to revitalize those businesses. So some of them might get displaced because the used car lots are something that is a dire need for space, but we can use it in a different way.
So Aurora is probably the most neglected place in Seattle. It's had, plans and promises made to it or made to that community for decades, and they've been repeatedly broken. Part of that I think has been a lack of political leadership, which a lot of the states back even before are having district offices, so there really wasn't anybody who kind of was seeing that as their place to defend. And part of it too has related to, there's a whole variety of reasons, but the communities themselves haven't really been organized to fight for that future until fairly recent. In the Aurora Licton area, there are definitely community members working together and working with businesses on Aurora. They've got grants from the Office of Economic Development to do planning that includes the businesses. They've got a vision. Bitter Lake, unfortunately, is really almost totally unorganized. It really could hugely benefit from somebody who is representing them, who with a community organizer background, who is also really ready to help kind of create an organic group there that could carry that sort of community leadership forward. But if we had a plan for the corridor that was really working with both of those urban villages, the businesses and the residents, I think we could make something work with both the city and the state, since this is a state highway.
Well, when I lived in the South End, what I learned is in Tukwila, they boarded up quite a few of the places. They condemned the buildings. Like I said earlier, it's called the RICO Act. You could do the same thing here in Seattle, Washington, on Aurora. And there's some things that go on there, and we had to take back our streets and rebuild. Take a drive in the South End, right above South Center. You will see that it's all revitalized, quite a bit of it. We can learn a lot from Tukwila police officers. They've done a lot. I'm not joking you. It got new buildings, new everything. At first time I seen it, I couldn't believe my eyes about a few years back. They seem to care what goes on in their own city. And what goes on in Aurora, what's going on here? Really, it's called RICO Act. We take back our properties and we rebuild. It's just simple. I just don't know why it's been going on this long. What the heck is going on? It's been going on too long now on Aurora.
Okay. We only have time for two more questions. I want to kind of dive into homelessness. Obviously, that is a big topic for many people here. What is your theory on why the homelessness crisis has gotten this bad, and what would be some of your major steps to address it? And that would be John.
So I think we have both a drug crisis and a housing crisis going on in the city. And they blend into what we talk about as homelessness, but they're distinct issues, even though they may very well blend for any individual person. I guess the drug crisis, not the housing crisis, that is actually leading to the huge impacts on surrounding communities that has really led to so much frustration out there in our neighborhoods. I think we've already talked a bit about some of the actions that would be most important to take with the drug crisis, expanded treatment, but also for the repeat offenders that are committing property crime after property crime to feed their addiction. We need to have a stronger criminal justice response that does include treatment as a component. In terms of the broader housing crisis, there was a study done by McKinsey for the Chamber of Commerce that the Chamber didn't like, because it basically told the simple fact that homelessness is rising essentially in direct correlation with rents and with housing prices. And if you want to ask, why are we having the problem at the scale that we're having? you know, that's the major thing. We had our housing prices increase dramatically over a number of years. Now, the numbers are now better, and that may be partly because our housing prices have moderated.
Well, what I learned in 2016 when I was homeless, I told 3 kids, you know, you can make $15 an hour flipping hamburgers. This is the truth. 2 of the 3 said, I'd rather be homeless and be lazy. A lot of homeless people, it's a hustle out there. I failed miserably at this homeless game. But the truth is, I still remember that. I'd rather be homeless and be lazy. 3 of the kids, 2 of them said that. See, this, I also believe what Ben Carson said. You know, not all of it, but some of it. Welfare can be of choice. Welfare mentality can be of choice. Ben Carson said that. I think some of it can be, but you know, welfare is by choice. And these kids told me, a lot of these homeless people are lazy. Sure, they might need help, whether it be mental, physical, or addiction, or whatever it be. You know, we need more social workers, counselors, to get them on the right direction, on the right path. That's what I had to do to get off the streets. So that's why I'm up here now. This is my 2nd time running. I ran in 2013. So I really think I have a lot of answers. My website is politicalpanthers.com. www.politicalpanthers.com. Right click, left click. Bookmark is your favorite.
Okay, thank you.
Politicalpanthers.com.
Time is up. We have Ann.
So again, my top 3 issues are homelessness and housing, public safety, and addiction prevention and recovery. And the reason why those are my top 3 issues is because we were being told that homelessness is basically all those things wrapped into housing affordability. And it might be, but we really don't have any data that really is telling us what exactly is the root cause, right? It is a blend, like John has said. It's a blend of things. And as David has said, it's sometimes an individual's choice, or it's an individual's resigning to a sense of hopelessness. And I don't want our city to be hopeless. And I feel like right now we have this sense of there's nothing that we can do, there's no way to fix it. And people are feeling not just disappointed and frustrated, but it's a lack of leadership where we can utilize the compassion that we have in this city. We are a city of great compassion, and we have to direct it and focus it, and then we won't feel so hopeless. But I feel like it is the drug. I feel like a lot of it is addiction-led, but a lot of it is also this sense of we've allowed some of it to just kind of creep in, and we don't have any data about who's from here or who's not. There is some data, but I feel like we've done a lot of studies, and then there's not a lot of action. And now it's time to act, and it's time to take a different approach, because more of the same in solving the problem is not going to all of a sudden start to work. So I think we need to provide urgent response with it, no matter what the cause is.
So right now, the city will require developers to put affordable housing in their units, creating units that are affordable, obviously, but what are some of the other things that you guys think needs to be done to create affordable housing? What's the plan out there right now? David?
Well, low-barrier housing, and for shelter, see, right now, we get, like I said earlier, capsule hotels and Doc Rainer's underground tour. See, we're pretty much filled up on top side. What we do is build communities underground. Even Amazon does that. See, why Amazon is so successful is because, see, you don't build on top, you layer divisions underneath. Well, we layer communities underneath. With Elon Musk or .com, we can create communities much lower in rent, create competition with existing landlords for rent, and bring down costs much more, because capsule hotels, whatever you want to put down there, it really makes sense. It really exists, board.com, they board tunnels, whether it be Big Bertha or whatever. It really makes sense, you know, and they're doing in Los Angeles for their freeway system. So it's many ways to bring down the cost of rent, create competition. you know, and the more rental units we get, right now, if you look in Craigslist, there's more competition now for rental units, much more, and there's incentives to rent. So it's coming down just ever so little. But see, we create communities under need. We just like Amazon does.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the main problems is allowing the developers to opt out of providing affordable housing. I mean, the whole purpose of doing that was to actually have some affordable units. I think we need to have density around the transit hubs. We need to probably have maybe 12 stories within a half mile of transit hubs so that there is a way to move people and have them be in affordable housing, close to transportation for themselves. Again, we need to have the variety of housing. Like, for example, just if the city were to purchase the 3 Sam's Clubs that went out there, and we were to have those into dormitory style for a transition place for people that we bring them off the street from public camping, and we had that be a dormitory style, it could be used then later for available units. And maybe it's a variety of where you rent by the room and you have a common shared space with a shared kitchen and a shared living space. And imagine if you had that for elderly people, where you could have same gender, and then you would also deal with social alienation of people who are older and closed up in their own home, and they're away from society where they can't get out and move about. That could create a way to create social cohesion with the type of housing that you provide, if you provide a variety of it. I think if we did that, even just at those 3 Sam's Clubs, for example, we had 3 stories of dormitory, we could house 6,500 people. And that's half of the number at the point in time count. Right? There's creative ways that we can do it as long as we provide a variety of housing and we keep it with close to transit within half a mile of that.
So if we can house 6,000 people in 3 Sam's Clubs, and that sounds great. I don't know about the details there, but that does sound good. I supported the mandatory housing affordability legislation that the council passed a few months ago, but with some major caveats. The most significant one that's worth mentioning here right now is the whole issue of displacement, where people are displaced from unsubsidized, currently affordable units that then get torn down to put something new up. And you know, in the U district, where they already did this sort of MHA thing ahead of the rest of the city, that's exactly what's been happening. It's been happening at a much faster rate than the city anticipated. And this is what Lisa Herbold's ordinance would try to address, but her ordinance would just do it in 5 urban villages across the city, only one of which is in District 5, that's Bitter Lake. Lake City, Northgate, and Aurora, Licton are also all identified as at high risk of displacement. So I'd expand her proposal. I would support the accessory dwelling unit legislation that is going to come in front of the council later this year. And last but not least, I would support the recommendations that are in the Neighborhoods for All report that came out of the Seattle Planning Commission. This would allow to subdivide the really big lots that we have up here in North Seattle to create more buildable lots, duplexes, triplexes, and cottage housing in targeted locations, and urban hamlets, smaller than urban villages.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming to this important event, and I'm sure the crowd here learned a lot, so thank you for making the time. So I have a closing remark that Speak Out Seattle wants you guys all to know. Oh, excuse me, I almost ended this party early. We're going to have closing statements. This is 1 minute, like the beginning. Just want to, end with whatever you want to say, and the first person would be David.
See, we need to lose the sugar tax, and we're going to get back to sin tax. See, the sin tax is you pick up a 6-pack of soda, you pick up a 6-pack of beer, whatever it be, wings, chicken, candy bar, Twinkie. And see, we'd have our own government refueling stations. We have our own refinery plants. And it's government run by the state of Washington. And so all that, like going to the AM PM, but it would be state run. And all that money would filter back to the state. And it would just be massive revenue for all of us. And I believe that we should have our own search engine like Seattle or King County would have its own search engine, like Google, MSN, Yahoo, Bing, and all those top spaces, those ads are pay per click. It's just like a.
Okay, the time is up. And the next person, John?
Okay. So this may be the most important election for City Council of our lifetimes. Seattle isn't dying, but it is sorely being tested. I was born here, I'm raising 2 children here, and I'm hoping that they're not just able to live here as they grow older, but that they will want to. We need a city council and a city council member who truly hear it when people who have loved this city for a long time say they are ready to leave. District 5 is changing. Northgate is transforming right now. Lake City is changing piecemeal, and Aurora will change at some point. The question is, will the community be a true partner in that change? If you want the answer to be yes, then I'm the best candidate in this race. I would appreciate not just your vote, but your democracy vouchers. Thank you.
I have a fire in my gut. I am not here because I have nothing else to do. I am here because it is a turning point for our city, and we have to have leadership that is responsive to us and that will face head-on the difficult problems that our city is experiencing. We have had neglect and unresponsiveness, and that's what we've been experiencing for the last few years. And it's no more. It's enough. And we can do better, and we must do better. So you guys know my top 3 issues again: homelessness and housing, public safety, and addiction prevention and recovery. And I match that with 3 pledges to you. I pledge to take the time to listen to you. And I pledge to hear you and understand you. And I pledge to respond and act to what you say. That's what we need. It's called local representation. It doesn't get any more local than that, is listening to people and responding. Please vote. Thank you.
Okay, so John mentioned the democracy vouchers. Speak Out Seattle says that they want you to know that they are in the back, so visit that table if you want those vouchers. And the group says that their last district candidate forum for this season will be in District 3, which covers Capitol Hill and the Central District, and that will be on May 14th at the Northwest African American Museum. They say they will be streaming it live on the Speak Out Seattle YouTube channel. So you guys are growing. You guys have your own YouTube channel. Congratulations. So thank you again for joining us tonight. It was really great to see some familiar faces. I've seen some of you during recording, and I met new faces today. So thank you so much, and thank you for the candidates for coming and answering all the questions as best as you could. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Got our 4th candidate.
I tried. You know what's